In this tutorial, you will learn how to create shooting with Raycast in Unity for a 2D game using clean and beginner-friendly C# programming. Huge thanks to Men Chhunly and a special thanks to Ahmad, Surya, Bimantara for supporting me on Patreon and joining the higher tier membership. Your support truly helps a lot. Now let's jump right into the tutorial and build it step by step. In order to shoot with Raycast, what we're gonna do, we're gonna add a line renderer component. So select your player in the hierarchy, then click on add component, and we're gonna find line renderer and attach that. And then make sure you scroll down and go over to materials and then choose the sprite default material. So search over here sprite default material, and it's not popping up. If it's not popping up, then click on this eye icon. So I'm going to choose this sprite default material, and after that go over to this position section. Then we have the first index of the position, which just gonna start with 0, basically the first position, and the index is 0 and the second position. So I'm gonna set it to something like 2, or we can set it to 10 unit for now, and we can just play around with the width as you can see. And you can change the color as well by going over to color, and you can just choose the color by clicking over here, then click on this color and choose the color you would like to go with. And I'm gonna remove this one, so I'm gonna select that one, and we can simply press down delete in order to delete. And I want to choose a green, so that's why I have chosen. So right now what we have to do, we need to set it through our code, and set it through our code. And also what we have to do, we need to shoot out a ray. And in order to shoot out a ray, we're going to create a script, and we need to enable once we need this line renderer. For now we're going to disable this. So to disable, basically uncheck in order to disable, and go over to your project app and then create a script. So I will head over to my script folder. Let's right click there, create mono behavior script, animate to something like player shooting. I already created that script. I have it inside my player script folder, and you can see the player underscore shooting script. So I'm gonna attach to my player game object by dragging over to this add component section, and now we're gonna double click on it in order to open that up in Visual Studio. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna make a function for it to shoot out the ray. And to shoot out the ray, we're gonna use a I enumerator function, because we want to wait for a single amount of time, and after that we just want to disable the line renderer. So if I enable the line renderer, you can see, so after a few seconds we just want to disable it. So we want to delay something, and in order to delay something, we can use a function called I enumerator, and that function just gonna allow us in order to do some specific things after some period of time. So before you use that function, make sure you go to top of your class and include this namespace called using system.collection. You have to include this namespace, and we know normally what we do, we type void, but we have to use this I enumerator instead of void, and we have to name the function what we want to name it. So I'm gonna call it something like shoot, and then make first bracket and some curly brackets. And to shoot out the ray from a gun point, so we're gonna create a shooting point somewhere around here, which I already did. If you haven't, then select your player, right click on it, create an empty child game object, and move it something over here. And if you want to choose an gizmos, then go over to inspector, click over here, and you can choose the gizmos. I'm not able to see the gizmos because I have to enable this one, and I can see by now the shooting point or the fire point. So from that point we're gonna shoot. So we need couple of things, and we have to use this function called physics2d.raycast function. And this function, as a first parameter, it's gonna take the point from where we want to shoot, and the second parameter, it's gonna take the direction, and the third parameter, it's gonna take the length of the ray, or basically the distance of the shooting. And the fourth argument, it's gonna take the layer mask, means which game object we want to damage. So I'm gonna make this one a comment by double forward slash, and we will basically we can just make this by holding down shift control and this forward slash to make it comment. And comment, we do not, it's don't interrupt our code, because before we shoot out the array we need couple of things. So let's come at the top of our class and let's grab those reference. So the first thing, we need a point, so we're going to make a public transform which is responsible for position, and we can call it something like shoot point. So let's call it shoot point. And the second thing, we need the direction, but we can skip it, we can simply use vector2 dot right, so we can skip that variable. But we do need the third variable, which is the distance or the length of the ray. So we're gonna make a public float, and we can call it ray length, or I'm gonna call it distance, and by default I'm gonna set it to something like 10f unit. The fourth argument, we need the layer mask, so we're gonna make a public layer mask, and we want to target our enemy, so we can call it something like damage layer, attack layer. I'm gonna call it something like what is enemy, just like that I'm gonna call it. And let's save our script. Let's go over to Unity editor, because we need to assign one by one. Underneath our player shooting script we can see shoot point, so I'm gonna take my fire point, let's drag it there, and distance or the length of the ray I'm gonna leave it to 10. And what is enemy, I'm gonna choose my enemy. And before you choose your enemy, make sure you assign your enemy layer as a enemy make sure you assign your enemy as a enemy layer. So I'm gonna, for testing purposes, I'm gonna drag any of this enemy, and if I select this enemy, go over to inspector, you can see layer I have assigned it with enemy. If you haven't, then click on it, then click on add layer, name the layer whatever you want, make sure you select the game object once again and assign with the layer which you recently created. So I assigned this enemy as a enemy layer, you can see. And now what is enemy, I'm gonna choose my enemy, and we just have those reference. Let's go over to our script and let's shoot out the function. So I'm gonna remove this forward slashes, and this is a star key, and we're gonna use this function which is physics2d.raycast. And this function, as a first parameter, it's gonna take the point. So let's pass our shoot point dot position. Second thing, it's gonna take the direction, so we just want to shoot in the direction our shoot point is facing. So we can simply pass shoot point dot right. It basically means the shoot point, in which direction shoot point is facing. So shoot point, if we select our fire point or the shoot point, then move tool in the scene view, we can see it's facing to the right direction. So shoot point dot right, it's basically means the right direction. And the third argument, it's going to take the distance, so let's put our distance. And the fourth argument, it's going to take the layer mask, so let's put our what is enemy, and we assign it our enemy as a what is enemy as a enemy layer. And now this just gonna shoot out the ray from this shoot point to the right direction with the distance parameter that we specified, and it's only gonna target our enemy. And so this function just gonna give us a true or false value depending upon if the ray is really colliding with this enemy or not. If it's, then it's gonna give us a true value, else it will give us a false value. So we're gonna store it into a raycast hit 2d parameter. So let's create a raycast hit 2d parameter, and let's call it something like hit info, and let's set equal to this. So this hit info can be true or false depending upon if the ray is really colliding with that enemy or not. Let's suppose if our hit info is true, if you just leave like this, if you don't set equals to true, it basically means the same thing, means the ray is really colliding with our enemy. So in this situation, this enemy need to take the damage. So for now I'm gonna print out a message, so we're gonna type debug.log, and we will say something like hit info dot game object, sorry, hit info dot game object, hit info dot game op sorry, we need to type this hit info dot transform dot game object, and then we're gonna access the name, and top of that we're gonna add a custom message something like takes damage. And hit info dot game object, dot name basically means the name of the game object the ray collided with. So the ray definitely gonna collide with this enemy, and we can see the enemy name is enemy 1. So enemy 1 and the message takes damage just gonna pop up whenever the ray just gonna collide. And we're gonna call this function once we're gonna click the left mouse button, and we can see we getting an error. For to prevent that, for now we can simply use this yell return a new wait for second, a new wait for second, and you can just put the time. So I'm gonna put something like 0.1 0.1f. It basically means after this amount of time you can do whatever you want to do. If you want to do something, for now I'm just gonna leave it like in this way, and I have to call the shoot function. So I'm gonna call the shoot function once I'm gonna click the left mouse button. So I will go over to my update function, and I'm gonna use this if input. So I'm gonna use this if input dot get mouse button down, and we're gonna use 0 for the left mouse button. And if this input is not working, then make sure you go over to Unity, go to top left file, build profiles, then click on player settings. So just wait, click on this player settings, and then go over to your other settings section and scroll down to the bottom and choose active input handling. Choose both. If you choose input manager or input system package new, then it's not gonna work. So make sure you choose this active input handling both, and once you're done you can just go back to your code and you can just call out the function. And this is a enumerator function, so we cannot call it directly. So what we have to do, first thing we need to type this start coroutine, and inside this we have to call out the function which is shoot, and then make this first bracket. So we have to call it in this way. It's kind of bit weird, but we have to use it. If I click the left mouse button, you can see the message just getting pop up says enemy 1 takes damage if I pause my game. So and the problem is that we're not able to see the ray because that's why we just added this line renderer component we can see. So we need to enable it when we need. So we need a reference to this line renderer component, and we can enable it when we need that. So let's go over to our script, and what we're gonna do, we will go to top of our class, and it doesn't need to be public, so we can make it private instead. And the component we're looking for is a line renderer, so we're going to type a line renderer. Let's call it lr, and we will use this start function in order to get the reference. So we're going to set our lr equal to this dot game object, means the player game object referencing itself, and we're going to use dot get component to get the component, and the component that we're looking for is line renderer. So we're going to put that, then make first bracket, and then close that up with semicolon. Basically what we're doing, we're just taking this line renderer component and we're putting inside this line renderer variable that we created over here. Now we can see we have the reference, and now we have to enable that. So to enable that, what we're gonna do, we're gonna do it over here. So first thing, we have to use this lr.setPosition. So we need to use this set position, and this over here, it's gonna take the index. So firstly we need to put the first position. So the first position will be the shooting point. So this shooting point or the first position, we're gonna store it into a index, and we're gonna store it into a 0 index. So we're gonna store it into a 0 index, and it's gonna take the position from where we want to shooting out, or we just want to set the line renderer. So it's gonna take the position. So we're gonna set the position from that shooting point or that fire point. So we're gonna pass our shooting point. So let's pass shooting point dot position, and now we have to set the second position, and we're gonna set the second position once it's gonna hit our enemy, where it's basically the ray just gonna hit with this enemy. So the second position where it hits, we're gonna store it into a second index, which will be a 1. So over here the ray is hitting. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna set the position. So lr dot set position, And the second thing, it's as a first argument, it's gonna take the index, so we're gonna put 1, and we have to pass the point. So we're gonna pass hit info dot point, and hit info dot point basically the point where the ray just collided with. Let's suppose the rays collide with this enemy somewhere around here. So the position of that line renderer will be set from here to our here, from that shooting point to our this enemy, and we can check that out. And once we set, after a few seconds, we also need to make sure we just disable that line renderer. So if we enable, so we also need to disable after few seconds. So that's why we use this yield return new wait for second. So just type as I did over here, and you can just put the time, which I put 0.1. So after this amount of time, I just want to disable it. But before we disable, we need to make sure we enable it, because by default we can see we disable it. So once we shooting, so we just setting the position over here. So before we set the position, we need to enable it. So we will go to lr dot enable, and we will set equal to true, because we need to enable. And after this amount of time, we just want to disable after few duration. So we're gonna set lr dot enable, and we're gonna set equal to false, means you just disabling it. If I click the left mouse button, you can see we just enabling the line renderer, and after few duration we just are disabling it. And also what we have to do, we need to make sure once we shooting out in empty space the raycast, then we also need to set the position of that lr, but we need to set it into a space, into a empty space, empty space you can think of basically. So we need to set the position. So let's suppose the hit info, basically the ray don't collide with our enemy. So else if the ray don't collide with our enemy, still we have to set the position of that line renderer through a empty space. So we're gonna use this lr dot set position if the ray is not colliding with that enemy. So we're gonna store it into this one index, basically the second position. And now we have to pass the position. So the first thing, we need to take our current position from where we shooting out the ray, which will be our shooting point. So shooting point dot position, we just taking the position from where we shooting, and top of that we basically just gonna add the direction. So we're gonna pass our shooting point dot right, means the direction of that shooting point, and we're gonna multiply the direction of that ray with our length of the ray, so we can see that point. So that will be our distance. So let's see, that will be distance, just like that. Distance, sorry, we need to pass this distance. And let's close that up with semicolon. We click the left mouse button, it's working fine, but when we shoot in empty space, we can still able to see that ray is shooting with the distance length, and it's working fine. And you can call out the take damage function over here. So if I go to my player shooting script, so instead of printing out message over here, you can call the take damage function from your enemy script in order to damage your enemy. I'm not gonna do it over here. So I hope you get the idea that how you can do it. And that's it, and I will see you in the next upcoming tutorial. So goodbye for now.